What a little intro sound is that?
Back again. Hey, that's thanks to my friend Heath, who just got a new job at Commotion. I'm so proud of him.
Oh my gosh, shout out Heath for the fire beats.
Yeah, he's got a whole system going. He's got a whole beat lab in his house.
Beat lab?
Is that what I don't know. Is that what
that
the kids
sounds awesome. Beat Lab, episode 2. Here we are. Spill your guts. Rachel
This is actually episode 1.
Can you believe it? We're still here.
Episode 1. The intro doesn't count. Don't worry, guys. Jesse's here to keep us on track and on task, which is... Thank you. Oh my gosh. Here we are. Spill our guts.
It's been, you know what? We've been on a adventure. We've been on a wild ride the last few weeks.
I know it. I haven't seen you in like 2 weeks, and I'm already like, I miss you.
Well, we learned that we're actual twin flames.
We are. We are. Whatever that means. Twin flames, soulmates. We've known it. You guys all know it. Now we're here to report that it is official. I don't know what that means, but it sounds great. But seriously, we have just commenced our second retreat season, our second year of retreat season together. And so we just got back and from our last retreat of this season, and we're going to talk a little bit about that because we have some pretty incredible takeaways, and I think that people see us posting and talking about wellness retreats and what we're up to, and I think they're really curious about that. So let's get into it.
I don't even know. I mean, I feel like we should start back in Minnesota.
Where all the best stories begin. Once upon a time in Minnesota.
The great white north.
Right after a hot dish.
Oh my God, I just made hot dish today.
No way. Is there
so good.
Is there different kinds, or is it one kind?
I've made it every meal. This one has it's like a breakfast biscuit hot dish.
Oh my gosh. Okay, for those of you guys who aren't familiar with Minnesota culture, hot dish is simply a casserole. But they call it a hot dish. You like how I've dubbed myself the Minnesota translator?
Because I was born there. I didn't even know that.
You were born in Minnesota?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, you were destined to be with us, Jesse. How does that feel?
You betcha. I'll give you a jingle sometime.
Cool. But yes, our retreat story does start in Minnesota, and we have been lucky enough to be to have been at a women's retreat up at the Point Retreat 2 years in a row. Shout out Krista and the Point Retreat team. Way up there in the tippy top of the world, it feels like.
Yes, it is. It really is. It's way up there.
Mm-hmm. And then we just got back from Sedona, Arizona, which was incredible. So we've been in the forest and we've been in the desert. We can check those off our list. We've
been wandering the desert for 40 days.
It's been 40 days and 40 nights. But I think that the thing that about retreats that I think that now that this is our second year that we've done it is people are more asking about them now. And I don't know if it's just because now we're just getting a little bit further away from the beginning COVID times where people aren't as afraid to kind of embark on adventures and they're curious about these things, or if retreats are just kind of super popular right now because of the COVID times. I'm not really sure, but how would you describe what a wellness retreat is? And then I'll share mine.
So fitness isn't the sole answer for me anymore. I think we talked about this. It's if we're talking about wellness, we're talking about real health. It's a whole lot more. It has to be, right? Actually just focusing on fitness is limiting. It's a great place to start, but it's not the end. Mm-hmm. And the retreats for me were these I've been thinking about it forever because I needed a space to explore the other side and also expose people to the other side while I was kind of figuring out what it was. So it was like, as it was happening, and these are the things that I've seen, felt in my 20 years in the health space that I know to be true and that work for people. And then how can I bring that to a safe, intimate space where people can learn and try and do and feel all these things that I really want wellness to be. Like, if I got to define it for most of the Western world, like, here are the things it would include. It would be body, mind, spirit, if we like bottom line those things.
Right.
And then they always just blow my fucking mind. Like, they always, you like have this agenda and it sounds good on paper, but what actually happens, like the deep work that people actually do is like, it's mind-blowing to me. It really is. Like, I can't believe I get to be a part of it sometimes. It's just it's heavy. It's heavy in the best possible way. I don't want people to make it sound scary.
I totally agree. It's I think that in the wellness fitness space, as you know, as people are sort of like reaching a point in their life where they're like, man, I really got to get healthy. Like, it's time to get serious, right? And they, first thing they do is, maybe start to Google like a gym close by, or find a trainer maybe, or maybe, download, an app that helps them like track macros or whatever. There's all hundreds of different like routes, right? But the thing that we always like talk about when we're talking about like taking care of yourself, and we actually talked about this a lot this year at the retreats as like a theme, the whole like concept of self-care and like this holistic wellness. Like, people know that they gotta like move and exercise, and people know that they gotta like rein in their food, and they know that they need to maybe clean up what they're eating, blah blah blah. And then there's like the rest of it. You just said the other side of it, and I think that can be like really arbitrary for people. And then they hear things or they see things online like, oh, practice gratitude, or oh. Get a journal. Like, it all like sounds really good, and we kind of like check the boxes of like, even in coaching, you're like telling people like, okay, like, yes, workout, yes, we're gonna eat, but like, how are you feeling? How are we gonna track that? Like, get a journal, like, do all these things, and it's like, we can suggest all day till the cows come home. People can have the best intentions. They can order as many Brene Brown books as possible. Right?
All of it.
But I have found personally that a retreat experience is an intentional, sort of concentrated boot camp of like pulling all of those things together and sort of like taking every other distraction away to give people like 3 or 4 days of like a concentrated, intentional space and guidance on how to like really, like, not just like, oh, maybe gratitude, oh, get a journal, but like really like, let's dig some of this out. Let's look at like spread all your stuff on a table and take a look at it and decide what you're no longer going to carry around when you leave this place. And like you said, it's in various forms, various different kinds of experiences and things we've come up with the different teams we've worked with. But it is heavy work because it's just not stuff that people like find the time to do in their regular lives. So getting away, literally retreating, like getting away from your life to intentionally focus and make a plan to come home and practice and like implement is what retreats mean to me. And it's so special, but it is fucking hardcore. It's like 2 weeks back from this last one, and your girl is frazzled.
Oh, I don't know. I literally don't know what I'm doing. And this happens after every retreat because we come and we teach and we lead and we apply and we listen and we feel lots of feelings. And then every retreat, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to go home and do all this stuff. And it's going to be great. I never do. I'll like sprinkle it in or like hang on for a while, and then you get right back into it, and then I'm like, okay, I just need to hang on until the next retreat.
Yeah, I'm just gonna retreat myself to the next retreat. and it's like I think maybe that's been one of our biggest takeaways this year is realizing, like, first off, in leadership, right? We go into it understanding that there is a part of us that we have to sort of reserve so that we can hold space for people. And that reserved part is like the part that we will sort of care for after the retreat, right? Like we kind of have to, we understand that in going into these things, it's really not about us so much as like there to hold space and serve others. So I know we've talked about this, like after a retreat, we understand that there is all the aftermath of like that, right? But it's also like you just admitted that. And I love that because I think people think that we're just like woo woo all day. Like every morning I'm like lighting incense and like having a 30-minute gratitude practice. And I'm like, nah, I'm just a regular asshole. But it drives us, right? First off, to keep being transparent, but also realizing, okay, like this stuff is so powerful and it's real, but we still are figuring out how to like actually implement and like make this practical for like, yes, we can go like to the retreat and do all the woo-woo things, but I still got to get up and go to work now back in my life. I still have all these like obligations, all these responsibilities. And I'm telling you, it's like if I really wanted to tackle everything on my wish list of like a routine, I'd have to get up at like 3:30 in the morning.
I never sleep.
Yeah, it's like, so that's not practical. And I think that can be frustrating to people to talk about all this stuff and then kind of like leave them hanging. You know what I'm saying? And I think that might be the next, frontier of like where you and I are headed in retreating. Like, what does that actually mean, like in real life, like when it's all said and done?
That's absolutely it. And I don't think we stopped talking for almost 5 hours on the drive home, because it is this like, how do we give this thing legs? Like, how do we make it doable every day? Or even just like take one piece of it, right? Like one piece at a time and apply it to your life so we can have some kind of regulation when we're not in these safe spaces. And it's so crazy to me when I even just said that, because safety, like that has been a theme for me this year. And I'm like, why do I have to like create a safe space for me to like feel and experience this stuff? Like, what is happening here that I can't do that? And so I started, and so that's when, and then all hell breaks loose. Then comes the existential crisis.
Yeah.
Which I'm a Pisces. It happens like every day.
I'm familiar. I'm familiar.
No surprise. I go existential and like and then you tend to hermit. We're feeling the same thing, but like different approaches after.
Oh yeah, I totally withdraw. I'm just like, okay, bye. I'm done peopling. 37 text messages. Yeah. Listen, if you're one of those people I've not responded to, please just know it's not because of you. It's me. It's not you. It's me.
It's the retreats.
I literally cannot. But no, what you just said, like safety being a theme for sure. And I think, this might branch us off into another conversation. But I think for me, one of the big takeaways from all the retreats this year, ironically, since we specifically serve at women's only retreats, is yes, Jessie.
Thanks, Jessie.
Perfect timing. Because I was just gonna say, I think the theme that is really glaring for me is that we, like women, create these spaces for each other. Like you just said, like I have to create a whole safe place to come home and like do these things. And it's like we are really good at like understanding that, and even like coming home and finding community and like other people we can talk about woo-woo stuff with, and like, you might have a couple friends that you can like talk about this stuff with and who will hold you accountable and check in with you, blah, blah. But one of the things I realize is that men do not have this happening, at least that I can see. I know that there's men out there that are doing their work. We got one right here running the soundboard for us. Give
Is
us,
this the kind of work you're
Jesse.
talking about?
give us a little like magic sound on that. Yeah. No, I mean doing
Just
the work
you
like
guys have to tell us again.
I just mean like men who are showing up like in their emotional intelligence, who are exploring like spirituality and creating community and finding accountability and finding, there's like this whole thing that we're experiencing, and I just really noticed that there's not that community happening so much for men, and then how much of that work that we're all doing, right? Because we might be going home to situations where our partners or family aren't having the same experiences. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, well, that's kind of a huge obstacle.
Do you guys mind
Yeah.
if I add to this conversation for a
Please,
moment?
no, please do. This is perfect. Spiritual
And
equity.
well, here we go in spiritual equity. In another podcast that I do, this topic came up, and one of the co-hosts is arranging a male retreat, and this exact topic came up about how men we're in an atmosphere where men aren't supposed to show feelings and be vulnerable. And this is he's actually arranging a retreat that helps guys do that.
This is amazing. Well, first off, that does not surprise me because I've been feeling it and seeing it so heavy, and I have faith and hope that we're going to see more and more and more of that. So thank you for sharing that, because that gives me like hope. And you're
small glimpse of hope.
Well, and it makes me sad. It makes me sad because look, this life thing is tough, right? And I know, like, I would literally not be. I mean, am I okay? That's left. We'll leave that up to interpretation. But I would not be okay if I did not have like the community that I have that supports me, and of course it's my husband, but it's my fucking friends. I have a handful of like ride or die women that just will not let me quit. Won't let me quit on myself, as much as I try to hermit away. And I notice, and I don't think my husband would get upset for me saying this, but I know that he grieves not having that same support. But also he, like, where do you begin? Where would you begin?
Yeah.
As a dude. And as a fun fact, I'm going to slip this in because it pertains, but life circumstances have led me into a new career.
Love in the factory.
Love in the factory. I had to hang up my coaching shoes for some steel-toed boots for a while. And it's so funny because I'm working at the factory where my husband is in management and been working for like 20 years. And now we're just like co-workers and we're in love. And I'm like, hey, look at these safety glasses.
Because you just slide them down.
Don't I look cute? I'm about to catch an HR case. Know what I'm saying? Just kidding. Just kidding if anybody from work is listening to this. But I have been officially working there for like 3 full weeks now. And have been kind of had our last retreat sprinkled in the middle of it. And the whole theme, the whole men theme came up, and I've just been observing so much because I'm basically one of the only women working in a sea of men in this factory. And a lot of these dudes I've actually known for quite a while because Mikey's had the same job for 20 plus years. So I already sort of have a couple friendships with some of the guys I work with now, and I've just been watching them interact and go through their day. And ladies, listen. This is not many women get the opportunity to like literally. I know a lot of men and women work together. Like there's lots of couples who are business partners and stuff. But I have had a really unique opportunity to like kind of slide in and like watch my husband in his element that he's like worked his way up to for 20 years. And it's pretty wild because I understood that he had like this, big boy job. And I was like, yeah, whatever that is over there at the factory. I know you work hard, but, come home and pay attention to me. Why aren't you texting me? Well, now I know, bitches. Okay? He is too busy. So I have this, like, very unique perspective of getting to see him at his job and, like, what he's actually been sort of, like, showing up for every day of our lives. Mm-hmm. And I have just, like, this new, fresh, like, very deep respect for him on another level that I did not have. But also for men, just, like, these men in general. I'm seeing... It's true. Like, I'm not saying women don't work hard. There's hella women that work at the same place who bust their ass. And I'm just saying, as somebody who did not understand and, like, appreciate the, like, levity of, like, what it means to go to work as, like, a blue collar dude and grind for probably 10 hours overtime. Like, the entire weight of, like, your family is, like, on your shoulders. And I'm just looking at all these men and you can, like, see the burden. And I don't know if it's because, I'm sort of, like, woo-woo and I'm intuitive and I'm, like, I worked in a gym for, a million years and I read people's body language and energy. And I kind of, I would say that one of my specialties is, like, connecting with people. Empathy, right? We're empaths. Mm-hmm. So I can feel it. You can feel the frustration. You can feel the, like... the resignation almost. Like, it feels like you just feel like a general, like, what's the point? But then they find these, like, times to, like, comfort each other and be there for each other, and they don't even realize that they're doing that and holding space for each other. And I think, like, especially at this last one we came home from, I think that was the biggest takeaway was, what does holding space mean? How do you support each other? Like, for real? And how would men even get to do that if they're not even hanging out and having big conversations? Sorry, I just talked for like 9 years, but.
No, but it's all good because at our Sedona retreat, we had a Rage on the Page experience. And I don't know if I want to share too much about it because it was so intimate and like, it's like giving me actually a visceral reaction just talking about it. Something I will never, ever forget. Like doing it myself, but witnessing other women express this anger and rage and grief and sadness and just have it come out organically. But my thought was, as I was watching these women, what would change or how would it feel if there was also like a male audience? Like, could men sit and hold space and witness women do this? Like, because I'm confident that women could for men, and maybe that's something I need to unpack. But I just thought for a minute sitting there, like, if we really do some of this stuff co-ed or all genders, can they do it themselves? And can they also like be a witness to the stuff that we all have going on?
It was so intimate. It was almost a little uncomfortable.
Oh, I was hella uncomfortable. Right?
Like, it was so raw. And so, like, intimate is the best word that you used to describe it. And you're right. I honestly, I think part of my retreat, like, sort of recovery has been processing that also. Yeah. Because when do we get the space to just literally, like, set it all down? The masks, the shields, the swords, right? And
I like my sword.
I know you do, boo.
I gotta chime in.
Please do.
Okay.
There's a movie made about this, Couples Retreat.
First of all, that's an amazing movie.
First of all, Vince Vaughn, yes, please.
The yoga scene.
But you're right.
Boom.
You're right. And so I think you're right, Jesse, because it shows like that that is on the mind of everyone collectively, right? This thing that we're talking about. Yeah. But again, like, where would a man start that journey if he didn't already have like the resources or influence in his life, somebody to reach out to and be like, hey, I want to talk about XYZ, you know?
So I'm going to chime in really quick. And to our audience, you won't hear me this much in the future.
We told you could be here.
The men's retreat that was being organized on my other podcast is different. Like, it's more of almost a barbaric like a way to release pressure, but it still has the sympathy side and the empathy side that is practiced during this weekend. It's just a different strategy.
No, listen, we learned really hardcore that barbaric rage is also sacred. Is as sacred as crying and
releasing pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that was a huge takeaway for me. And as we were driving home, we had this great big fat discussion about what would that look like and how do we create a space that's more equitable, right?
Yeah.
And not like what would that look like? Because I know tons of people who want to like go to retreats and who reach out and ask us about it, and there might be only like so many spots, or there might not be, it might not be as accessible, like to travel and to, to do all the things, it's like kind of seen as like a quote unquote luxury. And I'm like, it should not be a luxury. This is, I got real passionate about that in the car. And I'm like,
yes, because that's what, at least for me, and I'm still working on like my definition of spirituality. Because you and I have talked about this. Like, I always feel like I come right up to the edge. And then I'm like, maybe it's real. And then like something crazy will happen. I'll be like, it's all real. And then I'll go back to like, but is it though? Was it
like
just
I still
something
gotta pay
else?
my bills. Listen, like who can get all the way? And then
if I think about like how I want to show up in this space, which is a very like this spiritual space, is a whole industry, right? It's a whole thing, just like fitness. It just like fitness for me, it has to include everybody, or it's not it for me.
Well, and you just brought everything together right there, just in one sentence. Why we are twin flames, because that is the ultimate struggle, right? The dichotomy of like being so passionate about fitness, right? I'll speak for myself here. Being so passionate about fitness and what that has meant to me, being like as a part of my identity, right? Like hardcore. Because like, I have had this whole story and this whole experience with fitness. But then as I have sort of progressed on my fitness journey and it's sort of evolved into more, I've had to release the quote unquote fitness identity in pursuit of like my authentic self. Yeah. And I'm finding the same struggle in the spiritual community, because it's like we're just kind of like in fitness, right? It's like you're taking the concept of a thing that's magic, this thing where you like you can inspire someone to move and believe in themselves and realize what they're capable of, and it can fucking change their entire life. Then you have to take that concept and like make it like a marketable thing, and that's tough. That's tough. Like to create like a black and white, like 1, 2, 3 program. Like it kind of feels like it takes the magic away from it sometimes, which is why I had to go get a real job and not coach anymore, because I'm like, I can't charge money for this. And I'm struggling in the same way in the spiritual community, because it's like, I see the value, I feel the power, the powerful shifts that people are making when they fucking meet themselves for the first time, or they tell themselves the truth about something for the first time, or they, and it's just hard to like try to package that as a marketable thing. Especially as, listen, I'm just going to say it, especially as like 2 white women. Sorry. Yeah. Who am I? What do I know? I'm just here I don't know anything. I'm just here to figure this out, and like maybe we can figure some stuff out together. And that feels weird to me, to try to like put myself in this like label of like.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. That's why like in fitness, I'm an expert.
Yes, you is, girl. Yes, you is.
I'm an expert. Nutrition, I'm up there. But like whatever this space is, I'm not. And I'm learning as I go, and I'm learning what I want it to look like and want to invite people into it. And that's why, despite us spiraling for a minute there, that's what I told you. Like my big takeaway was like, whatever you and I do next, I couldn't be more confident about anything that it's going to be. It's not going to be like anything we've ever done, because it can't be, because we don't like it how it is. Like it works, but per our definition of what this accessible, equitable spiritual space is, we're going to have to do something brand new that no one's ever done before. We just will. Like, we can't because it doesn't exist. So we're going to have to create.
Bitch. Getting all freaking passionate and flailing around. I could not agree with you more. And I feel because those are my two options: quit everything and recluse, and nobody ever hears from me again. I was literally like, how can I like take my blog off the internet forever? And Rachel's like, my best friend Carla, she goes, okay, you could do that, or it could be reasonable to maybe just take a break. I was like, oh, okay, we're not gonna just let people be just crazy and just reactive for no reason. Okay, that's fair. But you're right. Like, I can no longer look. If the past 2-3 years have taught me anything, it is that I cannot show up anymore for something that doesn't feel, this for something I 100% cannot like stand behind. Do you know what I mean? And I think that the only way to continue trying to posture myself in a leadership position in this space of like fitness coaching / inward and onward sort of intentional leadership, like the only thing I know for sure to continue to stay anchored there and grounded and right is to stay humble, is to constantly remind myself that I'm not shit and I'm still learning, and all I'm doing, look, I say this all the time. Everybody who's ever been in leadership with me is going to roll their eyes because I repeat this all the time. But you can only lead as far as you yourself have gone. And the minute you think you've reached, like, you know, like, oh, I've made it. Here I am. Look at me. Look at, I'm the guy. You are officially an asshole. You've officially failed.
Oh, yes. We got to use the new sound.
But it's true. Like, and I know that because I've made that mistake so many times where I've like reached a point where I feel like I'm hot shit and I'm like, yeah, I'm coasting, and that's just when something happens that reminds me very quickly that I'm not. And so I think that with a lot of self-awareness and work and people who don't mind telling me the truth in my life and me being willing to accept it, I've reached a point where I can catch myself now before I do it. Does that make sense? Not every time, but most times. And that's like the only way is to stay like radically authentic and in humility, knowing that like we're not the first people to ever discover spiritual shit. You know, we're not. But like for our group of people that we get to like hang out with and influence and live life with, we might be the first people to talk to them about this stuff. And I would, you know, like to make sure that the integrity is always there, you know?
Yeah.
It's so important because these are real emotions and real people's lives and real stuff. And when we talk about, you know, wellness being body, mind, and soul, it's like you are partnered with an organization called Trauma Informed Weightlifting, correct? Are we allowed to talk about that?
Yeah. And also my friend Richard, who will be a guest at some point too.
Well, just this concept and being in the fitness industry myself and being a coach for the past couple of years, like being a manager before, like I understand and understood from my own journey how important it is when we're getting people to, you know, coming alongside them and helping them make these huge changes, that there's so much like emotionally underneath. And like, if we don't know how to lead people through that stuff, if we're only leading them through workouts or leading them through nutrition stuff, then we're really not helping them in the long term of like behavior change and like big stuff. And people don't want to hear that.
No.
People don't want to hear that. People want to be like, man, I want to lose 20 pounds. Like, tell me your secret. I'm like, listen, there's no secret. I'm pissed. I got to grind forever. Damn it. I got to drink water again. But the truth is that it is all of that stuff. And if we have leaders out there who aren't doing their own work, that means there's leaders out there only leading as far as they've gone. Which means we've got a ton of people who are putting their trust in people who call themselves leaders who are going to reach an inevitable dead end. You know? So my passion in life, I guess, is to, you know, ignite the hearts of leaders to continue doing their own work, because that's the only work. There's no like 3-day program. There's no thing that's like the magic thing that people are going to want to gobble up and buy and be super successful at. Like, we can't avoid the work.
Well, and the trauma-informed approach too, like, it comes back to that safety issue. Like, do we even trust and have safety within our own bodies? Where are we storing hurt and pain? That was my friend Richard that I was talking about. He used to work for Strong First, and now he runs his own company and also does retreats too.
Yes, I can't wait to meet Richard.
The 2 days after we got back, I was doing a workout, and like I've only had this happen one other time when I was working with my coach in Minnesota. Shout out to Tyler. I love you and I hate you. I had like a mental breakdown while I was doing a particular exercise, and I was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I've done this before, what's going on? But I think coming out of retreat week, because I was feeling all stirred up, and it was like a hamstring exercise. And so I messaged him and I was like, hey, like, I have a lot of trauma on my lower body. I've had knee surgeries. I have a dead person's ACL in my right knee, and I have my own hamstrings in my left knee. And I had a moment where like I was doing the exercise, and I flashed back to when I tore my ACL. Like, I was sitting on the floor and like scooting away from my own body and like having a whole moment. Like, I had to like go excuse myself from the gym.
Well, listen, you and I both know from Reiki that energy and trauma is stored in the body. And when people work out and move it, the energy moves also.
Mm-hmm. And so I think coming out of the retreat, I was feeling so stirred up. And then my body was like, yep, you are. Let me confirm that for you and have you flash back to 10 years ago when you tore your ACL and like all this stuff. And then Richard said, before I even like filled him in on the whole story, he was like, well, you know what your hamstrings are, right? And I was like, no. He was like, that's where your safety is. And I was like,
oh, dude.
And there it is. What the fuck?
So, and honestly, when we talk about quote unquote the work, this is a prime example of what that means. Because it's like, okay, you show up for a workout after going and having an intentional weekend of like journaling and focusing on your feelings and doing all these things. Then you go for a workout and your body begins to communicate something.
Yep.
And so then the work is not avoiding or numbing or distracting yourself from what your body's telling you, right? It's leaning more into it.
So I shouldn't have gotten shit-faced and pretended I was a DJ.
I wasn't calling you out.
Holy shit, but that's actually what happened. If I think about it, like, that was the sequence of events. Like, got a little unraveled. My body was like, yep, address this. And I was like, no, party forever.
DJ Rachel and the heartbeats.
I manifested that, honestly.
But honestly, that is the work, though, is catching when we have these moments, and it's like all of these little things are connected together and strung together. And I think that's like, quote unquote, the spiritual thing. That's it. It's just when everything has meaning and starts to make sense and like sort of have a domino effect and gain momentum, that's the spiritual work. Like, that's what we're talking about. And it's the practice is simply like listening and not running from it and not numbing and not avoiding and doing. And I am so guilty of that too. I'm literally like, I got all those 37 text messages I got to respond to. Do you know what I mean? It's just, that's the tough part. And it's like, so I think the next year, as we continue to like keep going, is gonna maybe, I hope, I'm sending in the intention now, that we will sort of understand that more. Like what, so that when we're leading people, we aren't leading them to a dead end.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, that's what it'll be. We'll have to, because otherwise we won't be able to continue. You and I, our comfort level, our confidence, we talked a lot about like what confidence is too. We won't, we just won't feel right about it. Like, we'll have to figure it out or we will stop.
Well, confidence. I got real passionate about that in the car too.
It was so good. We really should have just recorded that as a podcast. That conversation We went full circle, and I think it actually came back to confidence, honestly.
It did. Well, that's the name of this episode, Jesse. Just kidding.
Confidence. Got it.
No, but
It's in the notes.
I would say that confidence is an interesting thing because I believe personally that confidence is nothing more than telling the truth. Like being willing and able to tell the truth to yourself, to others, about yourself or others or an experience, or it's simply nothing more than seeing, accepting, and telling the truth. And like once you can do that without like weird
Ego.
yeah, I was just gonna say like caveats, that's actually true confidence. Do you know what I mean? It's like a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you've lost so much weight, blah, blah, blah. Like, your confidence is so cool, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, I have to thank my 430-pound self for that.
Yep.
That's where that came from. It wasn't in this body that stomps around trying to kick over people's dumbbells at the gym.
Shitting on everybody.
Shout out to
You're
that
that person.
16-year-old kid who tried to challenge me. I am that person. I'm trying to get them to ring that alarm at that one place that shall be unnamed. I did. I kicked over a kid's dumbbell. And I was like, take that, kid. Because he didn't think I could lift. Anyways, that's another episode. But that's not confidence, actually, right? It's the comfort in being able to show up and just totally be myself in like the gym space. That's confidence, and that confidence came from me having to like sit in my truck, at 430 pounds day one before I walked into the first gym I ever belonged to, and like accept the truth. The truth is I am this much, I weigh this much, and I might not be able to do more than 10 minutes on a treadmill, and that's just the truth. And we're going to just go do that. And that's exactly what I did. I think I stayed on there the first time for like 11 minutes, cried in the bathroom. I cry in the bathroom a lot. I cry in the bathroom everywhere. If anybody knows me, I have cried in your bathroom. I have cried in the bathroom at any place I've worked at. If I'm in the bathroom at your house, I'm crying. Just kidding. But that's true confidence, right? It's like, and it's kind of like when you have nowhere else to hide and you have to just go, well, this is it. That's actually where real confidence is born, I think. And that's really hard for people. It's really scary. It's really scary because we show up to everything with so many masks.
Yeah.
And that was one of the blessings for me of being, over 400 pounds is at a certain point, a bitch can't hide. You know what I mean? There's just some, real visceral truth that I was able to experience. And it was one of the major blessings of my life. A lot of people.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
But I was just thinking on this same topic is like, if we haven't, oh God, okay, I'm so glad we're talking about this because now this is really helpful to me. Because, at least for me, because we haven't like defined the truth or like our true definition of what this space is yet, what it can do for people, how to approach it, how to apply it, how to make it accessible. I'm not confident. That makes total sense because I'm still in the learning phase. And so it is uncomfortable. It's also like super empowering because it makes me just want more, right? Like I'll get to a place, I'll be like, what's this? What that? Even playing my singing bowls, I haven't felt uncomfortable in a minute when it came to like performing something or like doing something in
Like
front of
sharing
people.
that with others. Yeah. And you did amazing, by the way.
Honestly, it's been a really long time because in
It's
the
like
fitness
you're
space,
exposed. It's vulnerable.
Yes.
You're exposed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. In the fitness space, I am confident because I know my truths and I know exactly like the message I want to deliver and how I want to approach it. But then when I got to those bowls, I had a little moment where I was like, oh, I'm actually nervous. I don't remember the last time I got
Well, yeah, because you couldn't
nervous.
control the outcome. You had to like surrender.
Yeah.
And that's why people do not believe me when I'm like, listen, being over 400 pounds was like a gift. That was an actual gift in my life. And people are like, nah. I mean, obviously super painful, like physically, emotionally, all the things, right? But I have found that many, 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 many people around me, I'm an observer. People can hide their shit in so many ways. You can numb and distract and like avoid forever. And you can pretty much get away with it and nobody would ever know like what you're actually doing to like numb and avoid, you know, and we all have the things, you know, the shopping and the sex and the, you know, all the things, drugs, alcohol, you know, all the like common things. But when food is your thing and I experienced the numbing that I experienced like showed up and manifested physically on my person. I could not hide from it. Do you know what I'm saying? And it forced me to turn inward. There was nowhere else to go, bitch. And I had to. And what a blessing, ultimately, it was for me. I mean, and I'm still, you know, I'm still out here in my big body. It's just less big. But I'm free. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because it's like I can't hide. I have to either choose to show up just like this as I am or what? Fuck off? I don't know. I can't do that. And I just feel like all of us as human beings have that in common. Like you get all these opportunities that show up in your life and you have the choice. Show up just like this, just as you are, vulnerable, naked, afraid, and do the thing or not. But
we'll leave that naked part with Asia for another episode.
Yes. but it's true. Like it's so, like you were just sharing about your song bowls. Like it's just so vulnerable, and it brings the conversation full circle back to spiritual equity and like how can men who have all this burden, right? There is a burden there without community to like unpack these things and have these conversations, then how does that affect us as women in relationship with them and then our families and, you know, the ripple effect? It's like everything's connected. It's all one whole big thing. And that's why I think we were freaking out. It's a huge.
I was losing my shit. I was not having a good time for a few days there. I wasn't even sure what to do. It was so bad. Breathing wasn't working. Sorry, Al.
Shout out Al Bailey, who is a breathwork coach who was just really reminding us at every moment to go back to our breath. And we were getting fucking pissed. I know he's right. But like, listen, Al.
I would love if any people made it this far into this episode, men in particular. I would love to hear feedback.
Yes,
or
please.
Ideas, or even because I've gotten some from men before, and everyone has a little bit different opinion about how to welcome them into this space or what they need. And
and let's be honest. Like honestly, this podcast, you and I, Spill Your Guts. Really, the intention is for us to just be in love and have a scheduled thing every week. Jesse, you're a love child. Just our love child now. But
no comment.
It's to create conversation. That's what this is. Spill Your Guts. Like we don't want you guys to just listen to us like blabber on. We want you guys to join the conversation. So like that's what this is about. We're inviting you to jump in because these are the things we're talking about and curious about. So feel free. Yes. Men, stop. The end. All right. Well, I guess that's it for this episode. It's a lot to unpack, but if you made it this far, bless you.
Godspeed.
Godspeed.